Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the professor, and this is the moment of truth. In the legal profession, they have a saying: when the law is on your side, argue the law. When the facts are on your side, argue the facts. And when you have neither on your side, pound the table. When it comes to the Tulsa race massacre, the surviving victims unquestionably have the law and the facts all on their side. The enemy can't even pound the table on this one because they have nothing to say. So they're instead filing illegal rulings like this and hoping that black people will become discouraged. The survivors of the Tulsa race massacre are rightly seeking reparations, and we see that these white supremacists are doing the old "I'm white and I say so, laws be damned." The judge who's been presiding over this case just last year said that she agreed that the case should proceed forward. But we see that that was just a ploy by the Oklahoma GOP to keep the heat off of themselves during an election year. Because just last Friday, this same judge who ruled that the case had merit to move forward now suddenly changed her mind and decided to dismiss the case. And the reason, even days later, is still not made concretely known. But what is known is that she dismissed it with no legal basis to do so. This is one of the most egregious and blatant examples of "I'm white and I say so" in living memory. She dismissed the case with prejudice, which means that she declares that the case can't be filed again. Now, there was no legal basis given for this, just "I'm white and I say so." Though a lot of people have commented on how "with prejudice" perfectly describes this ruling and its motivation, this was not a judicial ruling at all. It was a racist political statement by a bigot on the bench. The strategy here is simple. The idea is that if this case is forced into the appellate division, hopefully it will languish there for years, if not decades, they hope, and that hopefully this will all just go away on its own. That's what they're doing. They're hoping that they can outlast the people who are demanding justice for the Tulsa race massacre. That's the goal here. They're hoping to bury it because they don't have any real basis for having denied taking this to trial, so they're using illegal maneuvers. The lawsuit was filed under the basis that the race massacre violated the state of Oklahoma's public nuisance law, which is a gross understatement. A race massacre violates the murder statutes and everything else, but this was a civil trial, not a criminal one. As the victim's lawyer put it, Oklahoma's state public nuisance law deals with if something interfered with someone's right to property, the use of their property, or destroyed or commits a crime by doing that. The Tulsa race massacre meets that definition 100%. And he's absolutely right. A white mob murdering a town of black people and destroying their property is a public nuisance, to say the least. But when you look at this racist white judge, if you can stomach it, you have to wonder how many of her family members took part in the Tulsa massacre. As inbred as those racists are down there, it doesn't take much imagination to figure out that more than a few of her family and relatives were no doubt part of the Tulsa race massacre, and she's working to cover up their crimes. This racist hag tries to lie and claim that she's nonpartisan when it comes to her political affiliation, but she's publicly said that she's a constitutional conservative. Well, the constitutional part is a lie because she ignored the Constitution to manufacture this ruling. The victim's lawyers were right when he called the ruling completely against the law and said, "We think the law is very clear. No one disputes that the massacre happened. No one disputes that my clients suffered a great loss. No one disputes that their property was burned down. They're simply saying, we don't care." I would say, though, that this ruling goes way beyond merely not caring. This is a blatant statement of contempt. It is a statement of agreement and support and endorsement of the Tulsa race massacre. That's what this corrupt racist judge's ruling actually was. This is a complete ignoring of the law. Up until now, the usual lie that we heard from the anti-black racists is that, well, all of these things you black people keep pointing at, nobody alive today was harmed by slavery or any of these race massacres. Something that they never say to Jews, Native Americans, Japanese Americans, or anyone else. Well, with the Tulsa race massacre, black people produce living victims. And what are these anti-black racists saying now? They're saying, well, but that was a long time ago. Yeah, those goalposts grew legs and started running. So this isn't about whether we can produce victims or whether we can prove harm. This is a psychopathic anti-black racist order that's in place, and racists like this Carolyn Wall puke are desperately trying to maintain it. As these white supremacists see it, none of them wants to be the first domino to fall. They know the law isn't on their side, and that's what white supremacy is about. It's about white fiat and white prejudice being the law. The words that are written on a page aren't supposed to matter. Whatever is expedient to white privilege, that is the law, quote unquote. That is, unless black people can force the issue once again. And of course you got the racists over at Stormfront East, otherwise known as Yahoo. They ran a piece about this. The headlines seem to be reasonable, but their subheadline read, "A recent national poll found that 7 in 10 Americans believe that reparations are not owed to descendants of those enslaved in the U.S. Now here's my question. When talking about the Tulsa Race Massacre, why would they put something like that into this story? This court case had nothing to do with slavery at all. It was about a race massacre that occurred decades after the end of chattel slavery. Isn't this a strange thing to put in there? Why would Yahoo go out of their way to mention slavery in a case that had nothing to do with slavery? As if this was about slavery reparations when they know that it wasn't. Why would they lead off with that false comparison before people even read what the case was about? It's because this is how the white media shapes, or rather mangles, public opinion. Before they even tell you what the story is about, or tell you one fact about the case, they start off by saying 7 in 10 Americans are against reparations. This is why, as the black media, we arm you with the talking points, such as how all the polling that has ever been done in the U.S. in relation to black people since at least the 1960s has shown that at least 7 out of 10 Americans oppose anything that black people are doing. Anything that even hints at being beneficial to us immediately gets 7 out of 10 people who oppose it. When the white media puts up a headline like this, it's meant to tell everyone to get on code against us. Well, they're too late. Everyone's already on code against us, and we're still pushing our demands in their face anyway. When it comes to what we're owed, we're not taking any opinion polls. We don't care if 99% of Americans oppose reparations. It's not going to change what we do. America opposes black people. That's the problem. Not because we did anything, but simply because we exist. To put a talking point like this at the very head of this hit piece is meant to justify this illegal ruling. So the bad guys are hard at work across the board, handing out illegal rulings that directly contradict what they did just a few months ago, and then they got their white media who cannot justify this illegal ruling, so instead they're just saying, well, everyone's against it and that's that. Now, the white supremacist trolls, tethers, lurkers, losers, and spineless cowards will look for any opportunity to attack our push for the reparations and tangibles that we're owed. But understand something. This ruling is not a sign of power or strength by the enemy. It's actually a sign of desperation, and it's proof that we're on the right track. They have to ignore their own laws just so that they can try to dismiss our demands, and that's because they're scared. Yahoo, part of the white media, the propaganda arm of white supremacy, they are the mouthpiece for established white power. The garbage that you see them printing is what white established power's opinion is on this issue. So when you see them put 7 out of 10 Americans oppose reparations for slavery at the forefront of their statement, for a court case in which slavery had nothing to do with it, that shows you where their minds are. They've seen what's been going on the last couple of years, and they're feeling cornered, pressured, and threatened. They should be. We can be disgusted by this ruling, but not surprised. All these racists are doing is showing that the times may change, but racist trash don't. Every demand we've ever made was always initially met with massive resistance from the enemy and all kinds of illegal and often violent maneuvers, from unconstitutional laws to unconstitutional judicial rulings to the outright use of violence, all meant to discourage us or dissuade us. And as long as we stuck to our guns, though, we would still prevail nonetheless. I've been saying it for 15 plus years. When we fight, we win. But if we don't, we die. The operative term there being fight. I didn't say if we voiced an objection, we would win. I didn't say if we put up some resistance, we would win. I said if we fight. The enemy knows this is illegal, and that's the point. It is meant to be a blatant show of corrupt white supremacist fiat, to say, okay, you got us, and you're going to hang us with our own laws. Well, to hell with the law, then we're throwing it out. That's what this is actually meant to say. They see us continuing to keep the pressure on them, that we're going to hang the bastards with their own laws. And that's the reason why they're just deciding that we got to throw the laws out the window. This ruling is part of a coordinated white supremacist counterattack. It's meant to tell all of these white supremacists, you better just ignore the law. Just ignore it altogether. To hell with it. Because once again, black people have the law and the facts on our side. In this case, the enemy can't even pound the table. This racist puke calling itself a judge can't even defend her illegal ruling, so she's not trying. Yahoo took out time in their nothing burger piece to quote somebody who was talking about a study to document the historical harms against us as if that's the answer. Just stop it. The Tulsa Race Massacre is one of the most well-documented incidents of anti-black racial violence ever. The judge pulled this illegal maneuver on a Friday, and she did it in the hopes that this story would be buried and forgotten with the news cycle over the weekend. She hasn't even released the so-called grounds for the dismissal yet, but we can already guess what it's going to be. Just another predictable, flat, phony declaration that the city isn't responsible for racial violence, even though its own people took part in it. Even though you had people who were affiliated with the Tulsa, Oklahoma government who were part of it. And she'll also try to claim that it was a long time ago. It will be a predictable mishmash of every lying anti-reparations talking point you ever heard, because that's what these white supremacists always do. Like Trump and every other white supremacist, we'll hear the lie repeated that, will people be able to sue for anything at any point in all of human history? Where does it stop? When the truth is, it's only limited to this. They're just trying to stop this. After all, is there anyone out there trying to sue over the Peloponnesian War? Anyone suing over the Scottish losing their land? That feeble talking point from the white supremacists is a straw man, and the people spouting it know it. This is not and has never been about any alleged fear of everyone suing over past injustices. This is about specifically black Americans not being able to get what is owed to us. They use the same tired lies for any justice claim that we make. They lie because they have to. And we fight because we have to. Everyone else gets a check even though the injustices they talk about happened to people who died generations ago. And those incidents were nowhere near as severe as what happened to us. And yet it's never a problem in the eyes of the law or the white media or anyone else. The racial status quo is what's at stake here, not the law. There was mention in the CNN piece that a guy named Ed Mitzen made a $1 million donation to the 3 survivors. What needs to happen here is that racist puke judge Carolyn Wall needs to be removed from office. There needs to be some donations made to make that happen. There needs to be consequences for this illegal ruling, and it must be known that her ruling was illegal and directly led to her being thrown off the bench because of this one illegal act. White supremacists are cowards. That's why they're white supremacists. They only try these crimes when they think that they won't be punished, that they have enough support, or that we don't have enough numbers or resources to touch them, and make them pay a price for their anti-black racism. Alright, it's usually about this time that we get some people who come in asking the phony question of, well, what do you think we should do about this? First of all, the dumb Negroes who ask that question, it is always because they already know what needs to be done, but they want to pretend that they don't. And then when someone tells them what needs to be done, they want to pretend and argue as if, well, we shouldn't have to do it, or they want to claim that whatever the suggestion is won't work. Whenever you see some clown who's trying to absolve themselves of responsibility to do something by claiming, we need you to tell us what to do, just remember, 90% of the time when somebody's asking for advice, it's because they already know the answer, but desperately wish that they didn't. Attaching punishment to anyone who tries to stonewall us or our money is what has to happen here. And we've shown in the recent past that we could get rid of trash like Anita Alvarez in Chicago, Angela Corey in Florida, Tim McGinty in Cleveland. We've shown these bastards that they are not untouchable, that we can touch them all right. But we have to be consistent about it. That's what's missing. When we hurt these white supremacists only occasionally, that emboldens them to take a chance. It makes it where they're willing to roll the dice and gamble on whether their acting against our interests will result in us punishing them. We have to prove and keep proving that we can and will exercise power over these white supremacists. We have to tee these bastards up and make them fear us. The enemy is scared and trying to hold the line. When they have to do something this blatantly illegal, that means they're terrified. The bastards are testing our resolve, hoping that the lazy and the weak-minded among us will do what too many black folks have done when something requires more than 5 seconds of effort, and that's quit. But we, the black grassroots, we're in this not for the long haul, but until we win. What's going on is the bad guys doing their usual MO, lie, cheat, steal. That's why I gave you that quote from Alexander Solzhenitsyn a few days ago, that a lie can only be maintained through violence, and the violence can only be justified through the use of more lies. The lie is white supremacy. The violence used to maintain it is slavery and race massacres and all of the anti-black violence that has followed 1865. And this racist on the bench just showed you the lie that they're using to justify the violence. Remember, they don't deny that the race massacre happened. They simply refuse to say that it was a crime or that it was unjust. Well, this isn't so much about making them come up with the confession. It's about making them cough up that check. We don't care how many people oppose it. We're not asking anyone's approval. America's racial order is based on this country handing things to people classified as white simply because, every crumb of their daily bread. And the white hierarchy also requires that black people be denied any and all money and resources that we're due simply because. Though it's a delicate balance, they can't afford for any bricks to be taken away from that wall. They know that their mountain of lies is being exposed, but remember, white supremacy is all too ultra-hypersensitive to anything that even remotely looks like it could be a challenge to them. They know that they can't truly square these empty racist denials with the law. This is where white corruption comes face to face with the black truth. We're coming to take a huge hunk out of white supremacy's collective behinds. Even the trash at Yahoo had to admit that one. These demands are not going away. The movement for justice that we represent isn't going away. That's the problem. They need us to become discouraged. They need for us to move on. Some will. These old, watered-down Negroes, they're going to get flaked off as they should. But those of us who understand that white supremacy must be brought down by any means possible, we're not going anywhere. White supremacy is trying to put up a brave front, pretending as if they're just casually dismissing us, when in reality, they're scared witless. This was a desperate illegal stunt, done by desperate criminals. They're terrified. You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of gazelles out in the savannah. When lions come out to hunt a herd of gazelles, they look to see which one looks like it could be a little slower than the others, perhaps not as spry as the others. When the lions break from cover and give chase, they lock onto their target. When the gazelle is being chased by the lions, they'll try to put on the best act that they can. The gazelles will try to jump as high as they can, quickly as they can, in the hopes that the lion will be fooled, and they will think that the gazelle that they're chasing is just too quick for them, when in reality, the gazelle is usually on its last legs. The gazelle knows it, but what it doesn't know is if the lion will fall for this brave front that it puts up, and whether or not the lion will give up the chase. We are the lions in this analogy, and these white supremacists are the gazelles. We have to make up our minds that no matter how much of a front they try to put up, we won't be fooled, and we won't be giving up the hunt either. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. T. Odom, Sherman Marshall, Morris Bodden, James, and Salim Muhammad. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.